and then welcome here. So our theme, we don't really have a theme, but what I'm kind of wanting to talk about today is this idea. It's May. It's Pay It Forward May. As you can tell by the papers that I have taped to the wall behind me, and that's fantastic. And so I'd love to hear from you over the course of this, or if you're checking this out at a later time. We'd love to just get a conversation going about how are you finding ways to pay it forward this May? How are you finding ways to encourage each other, encourage people around you in our community, people that aren't even around here? How are you trying to do that this month? So we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get a little conversation going in that regard. Let us know what you are, what you're doing, what you're trying, what you're going to try. Obviously, a little creativity is required in some ideas this year, but nonetheless, what a fantastic thing to be focusing on. It just is a great thing to be able to encourage one another in whatever creative ways we can come up with. It's too bad that we couldn't do this live stream on Star Wars Day, the unofficial. May the 4th be with you. But I'm glad to be joining you here on Revenge of the 6th. This is a good time to be good to be here. I am staring outside, and the weather is lovely, and I'm just really, really looking forward to golfing and fishing. Fishing season's open soon. There are some things that I'm looking forward to getting outdoors again, and that's exciting. We want to, if you're tuning in and just kind of looking for a church update, I want to give you a couple of those. First, if you missed it last week, we have transitioned for now, temporarily speaking, to doing outdoor drive-in services. And so we have a covered trailer that is parked on the west side of our church parking lot. And then what we're able to do is we run our service, that's our stage. We have a PA system that broadcasts the sound into our parking lot, and it is still live streamed. You may notice the quality or the different camera angles. The quality of sound might be a little bit different. We're working on that still, but in person you can come, you can drive in, and then how this works is you can stay in your car and watch, just crack the windows and you'll get decent sound. Or the way we're parking people, and according to the government regulations that we're following, we're able to give you extra space, and then you're able to sit beside your car. So everyone sits on the driver's side of their car. You can bring a lawn chair, sit beside your car, and so you don't actually have to even sit in your car. You get to come and be together, highly distanced and that sort of stuff. But we can come be together and worship together and be in the service together. And so this is a really cool opportunity. And so I'd encourage you guys to come check it out. This isn't going to be forever, and so this is kind of a neat thing that we'll be able to look back on and say, hey, that's a really cool thing. I remember when we did drive-in services. So make sure the weather's warming up. You can come bring a lawn chair, bring some Zote, crack some Zote in church, right? That's really, again, a really fun opportunity. I would encourage you all to come and check out our drive-in services. It's quite an enjoyable experience. Judy says she's bringing treats of encouragement to those who God puts on her heart. Might be fresh baked goods or a meal. Sending packages to a couple of our missionaries, going for walks with church friends, etc. All fantastic ideas. Thanks for sharing, Judy. Yes. Another thing that I want to promote to you all as far as this coming Sunday goes is it is Mother's Day this Sunday, and we want to celebrate all the women in our congregation, whether you are a mother or not. We want to celebrate all of the women in our congregation. So what we're doing is we have a small gift. It's a bit of a surprise. So you have to come and check it out and get your own. But we have a small gift that will be able to be picked up whether or on Sunday morning. So whether you come to the service and you get it on your way in or on your way out, or you happen to watch online or don't even watch online and you just come and pick up a gift. Same idea is come and we'll have 2 driveways set up. It'll be obvious. You'll see people at the entrances to our parking lot. We'll have one at the front and one at the back. And you can come drive through, pick up a gift, and that's it. So it's a pretty simple process, and you can come pick up your gift if you are a woman and would like to be celebrated by our congregation. So come on down, and we would love to honor you this Sunday. So that's the announcements. We got our drive-in service. We got the special gifts for women this Sunday. So I was thinking about this a little bit, just as far as ways that we can be an encouragement and kind of what the biblical basis for all of this is. And I was thinking there's a lot of Bible verses that kind of talk about this idea when we talk about paying it forward. What we're really talking about is going above and beyond in showing love and care for our neighbors. And again, if you go back to the old VeggieTales thing that I grew up on, and I'm sure a bunch of you watching watched, right? Who's my neighbor? And it's not just the people that physically live next to you, right? Everyone around here is your neighbor. And particularly in this digital world that we live in, I can connect with you through this tiny little screen here. And you are all my neighbors as well. And so we're kind of talking about this when we talk about paying it forward in May, or paying it forward in general. We're talking about going above and beyond in caring for our neighbors and showing love for our neighbors. And Matthew 22 verse 9 says, love your neighbor as yourself. Philippians 2 verse 3 to 4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition and vain conceit, but rather in humility consider others as more important than yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but rather to the interests of others. Proverbs 19 verse 17 says, whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his deed. Proverbs 14 verse 31 says, whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him. And then the last verse that kind of came to mind to me is the story of the rich young ruler, the interaction that Jesus has with this rich young ruler who comes to Jesus, and he says, teacher, what good thing must I do to get eternal life? And Jesus responds and says, why do you ask me what is good? Or he said, why do you ask me what is good? Jesus replied, there's only one who is good. If you want to enter life, keep the commandments. Which ones? He inquired. Jesus replied, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony, honor your father and mother, and love your neighbor as yourself. All of these things I have kept, the young man said. What do I still lack? And Jesus answered, if you want to be perfect, then go and sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. When the young man had heard this, he went away sad because he had great wealth. Then Jesus said to his disciples, truly I tell you, it is hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. When the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and asked, who can be saved? Jesus looked at them and said, with this man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. Peter answered him, we have left everything to follow you. What then will there be for us? And Jesus said to them, truly I tell you, at the renewal of all things, when the Son of Man sits at the glorious throne, you who have followed me will sit on the 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone who has left the houses, or brothers, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or fields for my sake, will receive 100 times as much and will inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and there are many who are last who will be first. Hi, Verna. It's good to see that you are watching and connecting here as well. It's good to see you on here as well. And this verse it can be a little discouraging in some senses, right? Particularly when you think about, every once in a while the thought pops in my head. In the big picture, in the grand scheme of the world, most of us here in Canada are wealthy. Just in regards to not wanting, not needing, we don't have to. For most of us, we don't have to wonder about clean water. We don't have to worry. There's a lot of little things that we take for granted that put us in this not really having too many dire needs. And that's not to belittle what dire needs people in Canada do have, but by and large, a lot of us are. And every once in a while, this verse pops in my head, and I say, "Wow, okay, where do I fall?" Right, asking this question, where do I fall within this story? And how much of the rich young ruler am I, right? And being careful not to fall into that trap where I value stuff or I value money more than I value God, and what God calls me to do, how God calls me to act and behave and go through life. And this is kind of when I was thinking about this a little bit more. This is where I kind of landed on pay it forward, May, is as much as it's about putting the focus on others. I think that there are a few lessons that we all can learn, and we all need to continually learn these ones, I think, as we participate in doing things that fall within paying it forward and considering others, right? And so I kind of came up with a little bit of list, and the first one is humility. And humility is critical in how God calls us to live. We saw that in that Philippians verse, right? Consider others as more important than yourselves. And do not look to your own interests, but rather to the interests of others, right? And value others as more important than yourselves, right? And viewing others. And so that it's not about, humility is not about degrading yourself, right? Because we often make that mistake, and I have quite a bit too, right? We're in a misconceived or a poor effort to be humble. I end up just tearing myself down, right? And saying, well, I'm not very good. I'm not very good. But I could actually be good at that. But that's not what humility is all about. It's rather about valuing the efforts of others as more, and really greatly viewing what other people bring to the table as more valuable, not degrading yourself. And in that way, we lift each other up, all right? But this is exercise number one. Is I think as we participate in all of this, we get an exercise in growing in humility, and I think that's a valuable thing for us to continue to practice. And then another thought that came to mind is from the whole story of the rich young ruler. There's a few questions that come to mind, and the first one is, what am I willing to give? And I've heard a few impactful sermons, messages, devos, little comments from people talking about this idea of what am I willing to give, and out of what, right? The first example that pops in my head is, okay, so I clean out my house, my garage, and I usually have a box that whenever I find things that I don't want, I don't need, are no longer useful to me, they go in the box, and then that box goes to the thrift store. They're not garbage, but I do not want or need them. So I give them to the thrift store where someone else might find use for them. That is good. But there's all sorts of other levels to giving that we are called to, and I don't think that we're called, and this is where the impactful messages that pop in my mind is, we're not necessarily called to just give out of excess, right? God calls us, there's these all sorts of verses that talk about giving God the first fruits, right? It's not giving God from the leftovers, but giving God the first fruits, right? Prioritizing giving, right? And there's all these verses that talk about whoever gives the least of these has cared for me, right? And God is saying, this is one of the ways I call you to give to me is by caring for others and giving to others, right? And so am I willing to give when it costs me something? Am I willing to give, if I have money saved up for a holiday, a new car, new hockey equipment, whatever, a new barbecue, whatever it is, right? Whatever floats your boat, you've been saving up, and then someone comes across and is in need. How willing are you to part with that money? Or your time, right? How willing are you to sacrifice? The stupid example I have of time, right, is, being willing to give up watching a Jets game or a Blue Jays game or a Bomber game or whatever to go help someone, right? That's the simplest, the stupidest example that I have for me, right? But even being willing to sacrifice what I want to do for the sake of someone else, right? Parents know this all too well, right? You do this for your kids all the time. There are things that you would love to do and you just don't get to, right? There are parents that will always make comments like, I haven't gotten to do this, and fill in the blank, whatever brings you joy or it's extra, and they haven't gotten to do it in a long, long time because they've laid it aside for the sake of their kids, right? And that's pretty I think that's probably a little easier because you care quite a bit for your kids, but being willing to do that for your neighbors, for your community, being willing to prioritize others and pay it forward, and consider others as more important than yourselves, and being willing to be giving in and above and beyond kind of a way. So how are you willing to give, and what are you willing to part with? And this is a really good heart exercise, I think, for me, and hopefully for you in this month is, what am I too attached to, right? I just read a friend's sermon he's going to preach this Sunday, and this is what he's talking about having idols in your life. And anything that's prioritized above God is an idol, right? And I think this is part of that. Is a good exercise on having my heart in the right place, having my priorities in the right place, saying, God, you are more important than anything. And by being willing to pay it forward, give my time, give my money, give my energies, give my thoughts, whatever it is, being willing to give that, even when it costs me something, is a really, really good heart exercise, and it's really good, and people will really appreciate it and feel cared for and loved for. They'll feel loved. Yes, and so giving helps us to consider others around us. It helps us to empathize with them. It helps us to see their humanity. I've had countless conversations in the last year, just about all of the ranges of emotions that have been going on, right? Life has not been how we wanted it, and all these different things, and sometimes people respond poorly to things, and it's not necessarily because of what they're actually responding poorly to, but because of this whole build up of emotions of disappointment or pain or hurt or whatever it is, and you've got all this build up of emotions, and finally they have nowhere to go, and something stupid like a pizza place running out of your favorite pizza becomes unacceptable, and you flip your lid, or like whatever it is, right? And there's all these different emotions, and I think this is going to be a really important month for us to consider the humanity of others. Of you have struggles, I have struggles. There's a lot that we're processing, a lot that's going on. Even in a non-COVID time, this is something that goes on regularly, right? Where there are just challenges that are being faced. Maybe life at home is tough right now, or maybe finances are tight, or there's some family strife, or whatever it is. There's a lot of reasons why what you're doing might be impacted negatively or positively. And so I would encourage you also to just consider the humanity of the people around you. Consider what it's like to be them, and consider how you might pay it forward. And so get creative. If you look at the Winkler Community Foundation, small plug, this is their whole push, right? This is the Pay It Forward May. And they've got some resources. There's this handy dandy little sheet, 101 ways to pay it forward. I'm going to hold it up just a little bit so the lag catches up and I can see whether I showed you properly. But this has, and it is clearly not an exhaustive list, but it is a list of different ideas on ways that we can pay it forward. And I'd love for us to start this conversation. Judy started it great with some simple ideas of ways that we can pay it forward, ways that we can think of others, ways that we can show that we are valuing them, thinking of them, prioritizing them, ways that we are considering their humanity, ways that we are showing humility, and ways that we are considering others as better than ourselves, right? So whether it's giving of your time, giving of your money, giving of your efforts, whatever it is, I would encourage you to look for ways that you can do that this month. Look for ways that you can pay it forward. Look for ways that you can consider others, grow in humility, and grow in valuing others as more important than ourselves. And together we will empathize with each other, encourage one another, build one another up, and we will build a community that is stronger in Jesus and stronger with each other, loving God and loving our neighbors. And so I want to encourage you to do that as you go into the rest of this week, go into this weekend, and go into the rest of this month. Just be an encouragement to each other. Look for the opportunities that God has put in your path, and be willing to give, no matter whatever it costs you. If you can find it in your heart to give, I would encourage you to do that. So I look forward to hearing stories of what you may have done. I'll be paying attention to the social medias for sure. And I hope to hear some awesome stories of ways that we have all paid it forward this month. So go and care for each other, and I hope that you guys all have a great time doing it too. Hopefully we'll see you all this Sunday, and yeah, well, take care and God bless.